In one small kitchen, a young girl's whole life was about to change. The woman she trusted as family pushed bitter fire down her throat, and there was nowhere to run. Her small hands fought with all their strength, clawing at the strong wrist that held her, but the stronger hands would not let her go. Her pain rose in one long scream, a scream so powerful it seemed to shake the room until it suddenly snapped in the middle. In that moment, her gift disappeared. Her throat burned, her mouth moved, but only a broken sound came out, and the one who hurt her smiled a cold smile. Yet this same voice, just a few years before, was the gentle voice that calmed the sick and filled her parents' hearts with hope. After her parents died, the same people she once helped began to whisper in corners, blaming her voice for the sorrow in her home. In a dark hut, an old seer warned that this girl carried a voice marked by heaven, and that breaking it would bring a heavy price. Soon, the same girl would stand at a dry well before a doubtful crowd, with a weary king behind her, promising that her wounded voice could heal the land. This is how the girl with the healing voice lost everything before she rose from the dust to save a kingdom that once tried to silence her. Let us go back to where everything started, before that terrible night in the small kitchen, to a quiet village between two low hills where this girl first learned that her voice was a blessing.
Grace could taste blood in her mouth as the hot, bitter liquid burned down her throat. Aunt Margaret's hand was like iron on the back of her head, forcing the calabash to her lips. Grace's small fingers scratched uselessly at the woman's wrist. Her voice, the same voice that once healed fevers and calmed crying babies, rose in a sharp scream, then cracked, and then something terrible happened. Her sound broke. It came out as a dry, broken whisper, like stones rubbing together. Her eyes widened, and Margaret smiled a cold smile. "If I do not stop you now," she hissed, "you will destroy me and my daughter." Grace tried to beg. No words came, only pain. If you were standing in that small kitchen watching an orphan girl lose the one thing that made her special, what would you do? Would you look away, or would you speak? But before I tell you my story, please comment where you are watching from. I love seeing how far these stories reach. And while you are there, hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any videos. These stories are not just for entertainment, they show how people think, the choices they make, and the truths they try to hide. Subscribing helps this channel grow, and your comment might help someone who is dealing with something similar. So please, take a second to like, subscribe, and share your city. All right, let us get into the story and see what happened to Grace. The day the singing stopped. Long before that burning calabash touched her lips, Grace lived in a quiet village between two low hills. The land was green, the streams were clear, and people knew each other's names. Her father, John, was the village healer, always walking with a small bag of roots and leaves. Her mother, Joy, was the midwife, the one women called when a baby refused to come. Their house was small, the walls made of earth, but laughter lived there. There was always someone knocking on their door, asking for help, for advice, for medicine. Grace was their only child. From when she was small, her voice was different. When she cried as a baby, her mother said her tears sounded like music. When she hummed to herself, people in the next compound felt strangely calm. One afternoon when she was about 7, an old man came to their house with terrible chest pain. While her father mixed herbs, Grace sat by him and spoke softly. "Baba, please breathe with me. In and out. With each word, the man's face relaxed. By the next day, he was walking around, telling everyone, "That girl's voice is like cool water." Her parents understood early that this was not an ordinary gift. One night, after another villager left their house smiling and stronger, Joy knelt in front of her daughter and took her hands. "Grace, listen to me very well," she said. "This voice is not only yours, it is a gift from God. You must never use it to show off. You must not use it to collect money. Do you hear me?" "Yes, Mama," Grace whispered. John added, "Healing is a holy work. If pride enters your voice, it will become empty. Speak from love, my child, not from pride, not from anger." Grace held those words like treasure in her heart. When people praised her, she lowered her eyes and said, "It is God, not me." She only spoke when needed. She sang softly to crying children, comforted widows, encouraged tired farmers, and slowly stories about the girl whose voice heals spread beyond their village. At first, everybody was proud. Visitors came from other places, bringing gifts, small baskets of food, cloth, even a young goat, just to hear her speak a blessing. Men said, "Our village is blessed." Women smiled when Grace walked past. But in some hearts, another feeling was growing. A woman with a sick child looked at Grace and thought, "Why not my daughter?" A young girl, standing beside her, watched how boys listened when Grace spoke and felt something bitter rise in her chest. Whispers started in corners. "If she is so powerful, why does she walk barefoot like the rest of us? Are we sure this thing is from God?" Jealous words carry poison. They move from mouth to mouth until even good people start to doubt. Grace did not know. She only noticed that some smiles were beginning to look thin. Then the sickness came. It started with a cough in one compound, then a strange fever in another. People grew weak in just a few days. Even John's medicine could only slow it down. He worked day and night, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Joy helped him, wiping sick faces, washing cloths, praying loudly. When her father fell ill, Grace refused to leave his side. "Papa, you will live," she told him, her voice steady even while her hands shook. She sang the healing songs her mother taught her. For a moment, he seemed better. He even smiled and whispered, "That voice of yours will shake nations, my child." But by evening, his chest stopped rising. His body went still. The next day, her mother's heart, already fragile from years of work and worry, could not carry the weight of sorrow. She clutched her chest, gasped, and was gone before anyone could call for help. In less than 7 days, the girl whose voice had comforted many had no father, no mother, no home that truly belonged to her. She sat on the ground in front of their house, staring at nothing. Her voice, that gift everyone talked about, had not been able to save the 2 people she loved most. Deep inside her mind, a small, cruel question formed. Maybe my gift is a lie. Instead of holding her, the village stepped back. "If her voice is so strong," someone said, "why did it fail with her parents?" "Maybe this sickness came because of her," another whispered. "Maybe the spirits are angry that a small girl is doing what only elders should do." Her father's brother, Daniel, arrived with a serious face and an eager eye. He walked around the compound, checking the few pieces of land John had, the goats, the store of grain. He called a small meeting under the shade of a tree and said, "According to tradition, when a man dies, his land goes to his male relatives. I am the only brother. This place is now mine." "What of Grace?" an old neighbor asked. "She is still a child." "She is a girl," Daniel replied, as if that explained everything. He turned to Grace, who was still sitting on the floor. "Pack your few things. You cannot stay here." "Uncle, please," she whispered, voice shaking. "Where will I go? This is my home."
Daniel's eyes hardened. You think you will sit on land and drive me away? Not in this life. Go and look for your mother's people. Maybe they will carry you. Here there is no space for you. That night, with one small bag holding a wrapper, her mother's scarf, and a wooden flute her father carved for her, Grace walked away from everything she knew. The village that once clapped when she sang watched her go in silence. 2 days later, with dust on her feet and emptiness in her stomach, Grace reached Stone Market Town, where her mother's older sister Margaret lived. Margaret ran a busy stall selling dried fish, spices, and cloth. Her only child, Sarah, was known for her neat clothes and quick tongue. Grace remembered her aunt's sharp eyes from a small thing, a woman who liked control more than kindness. When Margaret saw Grace standing at the edge of the stall, she opened her arms with a wide smile. "Ah, my sister's child, see how you have grown. Come, come." She hugged her, but Grace could feel the stiffness in her body. There was no real warmth, only performance. To the neighbors, Margaret said loudly, "What can I do? Blood is blood. I must take her in." People nodded and praised her. Inside, when they were alone, her voice changed. "You will sleep on the mat in the corner," she told Grace. "Food is not free here. You will work. I am not your mother." Grace bowed her head. "Yes, Auntie, thank you for taking me." From the first day in Stone Market, something strange happened. Customers who came to buy from Margaret would look at Grace once and then stare a second time. When Grace greeted them with her soft, respectful, "Good afternoon, sir. God bless your work," their shoulders relaxed. They smiled. They bought more than they planned. Margaret watched carefully. Business was better whenever Grace sat near the table and spoke. Her mind began to count, to measure, to plan. Sarah watched too, and something dark twisted in her chest. All her life, she was the one people noticed. Now this quiet girl with torn clothes was stealing eyes and smiles without even trying. By the next week, jealousy had grown tall enough to give birth to a plan. The voice of dust and tears. Margaret changed the way she used Grace. No longer was the girl just a helper. She became part of the business. Every morning before the sun grew
hot, Grace swept the compound, fetched water from the well, cooked simple food, and carried goods to the stall. When customers began to arrive, Margaret would tap the stool beside the table. "Sit there," she ordered. "When people come, greet them, speak blessing, but remember, you are not doing ministry here. You are working for me. You will speak when I tell you. Do you hear?" "Yes, Auntie," Grace answered, though a small ache started in her chest. Her mother's warning, "Do not use your voice for money," echoed in her mind. But where would she go if she refused? Day after day, people came. Grace sat just inside the shade, back straight, face gentle. "Welcome, Ma," she would say. "You will not lack. May your children bring you joy." Women who came in tired and angry left with lighter hearts and fuller bags. Men came to buy a handful of salt and went away with a basket of goods. They would look at Margaret and say, "Your niece is a blessing. Keep her well." Margaret smiled in front of them, but inside she thought, "They think she is the blessing. Am I invisible?" Sarah felt it even more sharply. Children who used to run to her now ran past, shouting, "Where is the girl that talks like song?" At night, she lay on her mat, hands pressed over her ears, as if trying to block out the memory of Grace's soft, healing words. One afternoon, a traveling trader came through Stone Market with small glass bottles lined up on a wooden tray. "Special tonic for the voice," he shouted. "Drink, and your voice will be sweet like sugar, strong like drum, smooth like oil. People will listen when you speak." Sarah's heart jumped. "This is what I need," she thought. But when she asked the price, her stomach dropped. It was more money than she had ever held in her hand. That night, while Margaret snored softly, Sarah crept to the iron box. Her fingers trembled as she turned the key she had secretly taken earlier from her mother's wrapper. She grabbed a thick bundle of notes, her heart beating so loud she almost dropped it. For a moment, she froze. Should I stop? Then she remembered the way a boy she liked stared at Grace yesterday, not at her. Shame burned her face. She took the money, put the key back, and tiptoed to her mat. The next day, she went to visit a friend, found the trader, and bought 3 bottles. When Margaret counted her money that evening, she realized a large amount was missing. Her eyes grew dark. "Who touched my box?" she shouted. Grace, washing plates in the corner, looked up in surprise. "Auntie," she said softly. "Do not auntie me," Margaret snapped. "Sarah, did you take my money?" "No, Mama," Sarah replied quickly, her eyes wide, hands behind her. "Then who?" Margaret turned slowly, eyes landing on Grace like a knife. "You came here with nothing. You wear clothes I gave you. You eat my food, and now you are stealing from me." Grace's mouth fell open. "No, Auntie, I would never." Before she could finish, Margaret's hand flashed out and met her cheek with a sharp sound. "Liar!" she screamed. "Is this how you pay me back? You sweet-talk my customers, and now you want to sweet-talk me? Today you will learn." She grabbed a long cane from the corner. What would you do if you saw this? If your own sister's child stood crying, accused without proof, would you stop to ask questions, or would you join the beating? The cane came down again and again. Grace tried to block it with her arms, but the pain still tore through her skin. "I did not take it. I swear on my parents' graves, I did not." "Keep quiet," Margaret shouted. "Even your tears are pretending." She hit harder. As blows fell, something strange began to happen. Grace's cries shifted. A sound rose from deep in her chest, not quite a song, not quite a scream. The air in the small room thickened. The metal plates on the shelf began to vibrate, giving off a low hum. The wooden door shook in its frame. Sarah, standing in the doorway, felt her own heart twist. The room felt like it was alive with power. "Stop it," she whispered, but her mother, blinded by anger, did not hear. Then one of the bowls on the shelf jumped and crashed to the floor on its own. Margaret froze, cane in the air. Grace's eyes were closed, tears running down her swollen face. Her voice, even in pain, filled the room with something no one could name. The older woman's anger shifted to fear. She stepped back, dropping the cane. For the first time, she saw what people meant when they said Grace's voice carried power. That night, Margaret went to see Mama Ruth, an old woman many called the one who sees. Her house sat at the edge of town, filled with dried leaves, clay pots, and the smell of smoke and herbs. "Mama, there is something in my house," Margaret said, sitting on a low stool. "It is in that girl. When I beat her today, plates started shaking. The air changed. My heart is not at peace." Mama Ruth listened quietly. Then she closed her eyes, whispered a prayer, and dropped a few cowrie shells on a mat. She studied how they fell, her brows pulling together. "This child," she said slowly, "is marked. Her voice is not ordinary. Heaven tied healing to her words. When she speaks with a clean heart, sickness will run, broken souls will stand, even land can answer." Margaret's mouth went dry. Then, "She is dangerous to me," she muttered. "People will forget my own daughter." Mama Ruth opened her eyes. "She is dangerous only to those who fight her. If you protect her, your house will be blessed. If you harm her, you will answer, not just to her, but to the one who gave her that voice." But envy does not listen to warning. As Margaret walked home, she did not think of protection. She thought of control. "I cannot throw her out," she told herself. "People will ask questions. I cannot kill her. That is too big. But I can make sure she never rises above us." From the next day, Margaret turned Grace into a full servant.
She woke her before the first cock crowed. Fetch water, sweep, cook, wash all the clothes. After that, follow me to the market. Do not talk unless I tell you. That voice of yours will only speak when I choose. Sarah stopped doing any housework. She said, "Why should I? Is that not why you brought her?" She spent her days polishing her nails, braiding her hair, and going out with friends. When she was at the stall, she stood in front, pretending to help, but her speech never moved people the way Grace's did. Even in the middle of work and pain, Grace could not stop being herself. When she met a tired woman on the road, she would whisper, "God will give you strength." When a child fell and cried, she would quietly say, "You will be fine, my dear." And somehow the tears dried faster. People in the market began to say, "That girl, there is something about her. Even when she looks tired, her words carry life." These quiet praises reached Margaret's ears and burned like hot coal. She wanted to break whatever light was shining from her niece. One afternoon, the market was crowded and noisy. The sun was high and traders shouted over each other. Grace carried a tray of peppers on her head, moving carefully through the people. Suddenly, she saw a woman nearby sway, drop her basket, and fall flat to the ground. Without thinking, Grace rushed to her side. "Please give her space," she called. She knelt, set down the tray, and lifted the woman's head gently. The woman's eyes rolled back, her chest fought for air. "Madame, hear me," Grace whispered close to her ear. "You will not die here. Breathe with me. In, out." She began to speak slow and steady, and as she did, the woman's breathing started to follow her rhythm, each word like a hand pulling her back from the edge. After a few moments, color returned to her face. Her fingers moved. She opened her eyes, dazed but alive. But before thanks could come, another voice cut through. "Did you see?" One woman shouted. "The stranger girl touched her before she fell. This is not ordinary." "I have always said it." Another added. "This her healing voice, who knows where it came from? First, her own parents died, and now people are collapsing where she passes." "Maybe she wanted to steal from the woman," someone said. "She went straight to the purse." Lies travel faster than truth. Soon a small crowd formed, faces suspicious, hands already ready to push. "Witch!" one man spat. "Always near sickness, this one." He gave her a shove. Others joined. Someone slapped the tray from her hand. Peppers rolled into the dirt. Grace tried to explain. "I was helping her." "Keep quiet," a woman backed. "Do not enter my eyes with that your sweet voice. We know your type." A stone flew from somewhere and hit her arm. Another hit her leg. She curled around the woman she had just helped, trying to shield her even while taking the blows. No one there that day later said, "We are the ones who beat a helper." They all remembered only their fear, not their cruelty. By the time Grace limped back home, her knees were bleeding, her head aching. She hoped, just for a second, that Margaret would put a hand on her shoulder and say, "You tried your best." Instead, as soon as she stepped into the compound, her aunt's eyes flashed.
"You again," Margaret snapped. "Everywhere you go, trouble follows. People are talking, saying you are bringing shame to my house. That voice has made you stubborn. Today, I will end it." She dragged Grace into the kitchen, ignoring her weak struggles. On the fire was a pot of boiling herbs, bitter and dark. Margaret grabbed a calabash, scooped up the liquid, and turned. "You say your voice is from God," she hissed. "Let us see if it can pass through this." She grabbed the back of Grace's head and forced the bowl to her lips. The first drop that touched her tongue felt like knives. It scorched its way down her throat, burning every tender part. Grace jerked, tried to pull away, but Margaret's fingers were claws. Her scream rose and cracked. She felt something tear deep inside, where song usually formed. When the calabash was finally empty, Grace fell to the ground, clutching her neck. She tried to speak, No words came, just a broken croak. Margaret stepped back, breathing hard, eyes wild. "From today," she said slowly, "no more special voice. You will be like every other girl. Better, you will be less because you belong to me." In the days that followed, the air in Stone Market Town cooled as if something gentle had left it. When Grace opened her mouth to talk, only a painful whisper came. People looked at her and frowned. Was this not the girl whose voice used to sound like music? Maybe it was a trick all along. Far away, in farms and towns beyond, something else began to change. The earth, which used to open easily, grew hard. Leaves turned brown and fell before their time. Water in the wells sank lower each week. A strange, heavy sickness started to spread from house to house. Coughs lasted longer, fevers burned hotter. Babies' cries sounded thinner. No one connected those things to one small girl in a trader's compound whose voice had been broken. In the capital city, King David walked through his palace courtyard, looking at the dry fountain in the middle. "This is not normal," he told his advisors. "Our land is dying while we watch." One of the elders said, "Your Majesty, we have tried everything. We have called healers, priests, herbalists. Nothing is working." "Then call everybody," King David said, his jaw set. "Send messengers to every town. Tell them this: whoever can stop this sickness and bring life back to our land will be honored and rewarded. I will give them land, wealth, and a seat at my side." Word of the king's promise spread like fire. Men and women with big names and big pride began to plan. Each one thought, "I will be the one." In Margaret's house, nobody thought of Grace. Why would they? She was now just the quiet girl who moved like a shadow, doing all the work, her voice a hurting whisper that could barely rise above a murmur. One night, after everyone slept, Grace sat outside, looking at the dry compound, feeling the heaviness in the air. Her throat ached, but her heart ached more. She touched her neck gently, and tears filled her eyes. She thought of her parents, of their graves at the edge of her old village. A longing rose in her chest so strong that it pushed her to her feet. Barefoot, holding only her mother's old scarf, Grace stepped into the dark street and walked away from Stone Market Town, one small figure moving through a land slowly forgetting how to live. When the land learned to listen, the journey back to her village took 2 full days of walking. Grace's body was already weak from many weeks of hard work and little food. Dust clung to her legs. Twice she almost collapsed by the roadside, but the thought of her parents' resting place pulled her forward. When she finally saw the familiar shape of the 2 low hills that guarded her home village, her chest tightened. The houses looked smaller now, the paths quieter. Some doors were shut in the middle of the day. Chickens scratched half-heartedly around dry yards. The little stream at the edge of the village had shrunk to a thin, struggling line. Grace went straight to the small patch of earth under a spreading tree where John and Joy were buried. The grass around the mounds was tall and uncut. No one had come to clear it, to greet them, to remember. She fell to her knees. For a long time there were no words, only tears. Big, heavy drops that fell on the hard ground. She laid her cheek against the soil as if trying to get closer to the 2 hearts that once beat for her alone. Her throat burned when she tried to speak. No sound came. So she prayed inside. "Mama, Papa, can you see me? They took the house, they took the land, they took my voice. I tried to help, but everything turned against me. Am I still your daughter?
Is God still listening? Days passed like that. In the morning, she would sit by the graves, her back against the tree. In the afternoon, she would lie flat, face to the ground. At night, she curled herself between the two mounds as if there were arms around her. She ate almost nothing. Villagers who passed by looked away, ashamed, confused, or simply uninterested. On the third night, something changed. The sky was clear, full of sharp stars. The air around the graves was very still. Grace lay on her side, eyes closed, tears drying on her cheeks. A soft light touched her eyelids. At first, she thought it was only the moon, but then it grew brighter, warmer. She opened her eyes. Standing between the two graves was a woman dressed in white cloth that moved even though there was no breeze. Her skin shone with a gentle light like the inside of a shell. Her eyes were deep and kind, with the same softness Joy used to have when she watched her daughter sleep. Grace gasped and tried to rise, but her weak body trembled. The woman bent and reached out a hand. Her touch was warm and firm. "Do not be afraid," she said, and even though her lips barely moved, the words filled the air. "Grace, child of John and Joy, I have watched your tears." Her own mouth opened. A hoarse, broken sound came out. Who are you?" Each word scraping her throat. The woman smiled. "I am a messenger. Some call me an ancestor. Some call me an angel. All you need to know is that I was sent by the one who gave you your voice."
Grace's hands flew to her neck. Fresh tears spilled. "My voice, it is gone," she whispered. "I failed my parents. I could not heal them. I could not protect myself. What kind of gift is this?" The woman placed her palm gently over Grace's throat. Warmth flooded through her, deeper than any herb, softer than any cloth. It moved like water, washing over every wound inside. The pain eased, then disappeared. "Your voice was never gone," the woman said softly. "It was wounded, like your heart, but what belongs to God cannot be stolen by envy. It can be delayed, it can be hidden, but it cannot be destroyed." The warmth grew stronger until Grace felt like light was filling her from the inside. She took a breath. It went in smooth. She let it out, and a small note of sound slipped past her lips, pure, clear, like a tiny bell. She stared, eyes wide. "Talk," the woman said. "Mama," Grace breathed, then stopped herself. Her voice was back, not just back, but stronger, richer, more beautiful than before. Every syllable vibrated in the air like a gentle drum. The woman nodded. "The land is groaning, Grace. You can feel it. The ground is dry. The sickness is stealing lives. When your voice was broken unjustly, something in the balance of this kingdom broke too. Now heaven wants to heal the land and you." "How?" Grace asked. She was sitting up now, back straight, eyes fixed on the shining figure. "You will go to the king," the woman said. "You will tell him you can help. If he allows you, you will go to the big well that serves the capital. You will stand there and speak blessing over the water, not loud, but from the bottom of your heart. Then you will visit 3 homes where the sickness is strongest. At each doorway you will whisper a prayer. When you finish, you will leave the rest to God." "But they do not listen to girls,"
Grace said slowly. "They did not listen when I tried to help before." The woman's eyes softened. "They did not listen because they did not know what they were touching. But this time, your pain has ripened your gift. You are not the same small girl. You are a seed that has gone under the ground and risen again. Some people will still mock you. Some will still doubt. That is their choice. Yours is to stand and speak." She placed her hand once more on Grace's head. "Remember what your parents taught you. Do not use this voice for pride. Do not sell it. Do not use it to destroy. Only to heal, to correct, to comfort. If you keep your heart soft, God will keep your sound strong." With that, the light around the woman grew so bright that Grace had to close her eyes. When she opened them again, the woman was gone. Only the quiet graves remained, but the air felt different, full of promise. The next morning, Grace stood up. Her legs trembled, but she stood. She tied her mother's old scarf over her hair, touched both graves gently, and said in a clear, steady voice, "Thank you. I will not waste what you gave me." Her words floated out into the thin air and seemed to settle on the nearby fields, on the leaves of the struggling trees, on the surface of the shrinking stream. The capital city was busier than any place Grace had ever seen. Carts rattled by, people shouted prices. The royal compound rose above everything, with high walls and carved wooden gates. Dust swirled where water once flowed freely from a central fountain that now lay dry and cracked. At the palace entrance, 2 tall guards crossed their spears when she tried to pass. "Where are you thinking you are going?" one of them asked. Grace lifted her chin. "Please, I need to see King David," she said. Her voice, though gentle, carried clearly in the air. The guards blinked at the sound. "See the king?" the other laughed. "Do you think this is market? Go away, girl. The king is busy with matters of life and death. There is sickness everywhere. Do not add to his trouble." "That is why I came. I was sent to help with the sickness." The guards exchanged a look. One of them frowned. "Another one," he muttered. "Every day somebody comes, claiming they can save the land." "If I am lying, send me away," Grace said quietly. "But if I am telling the truth and you block me here, will you carry that on your head?" There was something in the way she spoke that the older guard hesitated. Finally he sighed. "Wait here," he said, and went inside. Minutes later, Grace found herself standing in a large hall with cool walls and bright cloths hanging from the ceiling. At the far end, on a carved chair, sat King David, his face lined with worry. Around him stood advisors, priests and elders. Some coughed into cloths, many looked tired. "This is the girl who says she can help," the guard announced. Whispers rose immediately. "From where?" "Look at her clothes," one scoffed. "She cannot even help herself." King David raised his hand, and the noise died. His eyes rested on Grace. "What is your name?" he asked. "Grace, Your Majesty," she answered, bowing slightly. "What makes you think you can do what my best healers and priests have failed to do?" Grace swallowed, then spoke plainly. "When I was a child, my voice helped sick people get better. I lost that voice through wickedness. God has given it back and sent me here.
If you allow me, I will speak blessing over your main well and over 3 homes where the sickness is worst. After that, we will see." The hall erupted in scoffs and laughter. "She thinks water listens to little girls," one advisor said. "This is an insult," a priest frowned. King David lifted his hand again. He closed his eyes for a moment, as if listening to something inside. "We have tried everything," he said finally. "If this girl is lying, we lose only a little time. If she is telling the truth and we refuse her, we may lose everything." He turned to Grace. "If you fail, child, people will be angry. They may want to harm you. Are you ready to risk that?" Grace remembered stones hitting her in the market, the taste of burnt herbs in her throat. She thought of her parents' graves, the glowing woman in white. "Yes, Your Majesty," she said. "I am not afraid of anger anymore, only of disobeying God." Something in her answer stirred even the hard hearts in the room. The king nodded once. "Then we go now," he said. The capital's main well sat in the center of the city, lined with smooth stones. Once it had been deep and singing with water. Now, when people looked in, they saw only cracked earth and a few muddy patches. A crowd quickly gathered when they saw the king walking with a thin girl in simple clothes. "What is happening?" people cried. "Who is she?" Word spread. "This is the one who says she can heal the land." Some laughed, some shook their heads, some watched with quiet, desperate hope. Grace stepped up to the edge of the well. She looked down into the dry darkness, then closed her eyes. Her heart beat fast, but her feet felt planted, like roots going into the stone. She took a slow breath and began to speak. "Water of this land," she said, her voice low but clear. "You were placed here by God to give life. Men have misused the earth. Women have cried. Children have suffered. But mercy is stronger than judgment. In the name of the one who made you, I call you back. Flow again. Refresh this land. Wash away this sickness." Her words did not shout, but they carried. People at the edge of the crowd felt them pass through their chests like a warm wind.
Even those who did not believe found themselves holding their breath. When she finished, nothing obvious happened. The well remained dry. The stone stayed still. "Is that all?" someone called out. "Where is the thunder?" another mocked. "This is what we left our work for," a trader complained. Grace did not answer them. She turned to King David and said, "Now 3 houses." They went first to the home of a palace guard who lay on a mat burning with fever. His wife knelt beside him, eyes swollen from crying. At the door, Grace paused, placed her hand gently on the frame and whispered, "Peace enter here. Let death pass over. Let this house see laughter again." Her voice was so soft that only the wood seemed to fully hear. The second house belonged to a poor widow with 3 small children, all coughing, all thin. Grace touched the doorway and whispered, "Strength come here. Let food find this table. Let breath return strong." The third house was that of a respected elder who had served the kingdom for many years. Now he lay so weak he could not even turn his head. Grace's hand rested on his doorpost. "Old tree, you have given shade for long. You will not fall like this. Receive life again." At each house, some shook their heads.
Some wept quietly. A few whispered, "Amen." When they returned to the palace, the sun was going down. People followed, grumbling. "Nothing changed," one man said. "Tomorrow we will wake up to the same dry land," a woman sighed. King David sent Grace to a small room near the palace gate to rest. Before she lay down, she knelt and said one last prayer. "God, I have done as you said. The rest is in your hands. Even if they never thank me, please have mercy on them." That night, something moved under the ground. Deep beneath the capital, hidden channels began to fill. Water that had been blocked started to push through hard layers of earth. At first, it was only a trickle. Then it grew. Just before dawn, the first guard on duty at the main well heard a faint sound, a soft gurgle. He walked closer, frowning. The sound grew. He leaned over and jumped back as a thin line of clear water broke through the cracked bottom, then another, then another. It rose slowly, then faster, filling the well like a bowl being poured into. He shouted so loud his voice woke half the city. People ran from their houses, hair undone, wrappers loose, eyes wide. They gathered around the well and watched as the water climbed higher, sparkling in the early light. "It is back," someone whispered. "The water is back." In the 3 houses where Grace had whispered at the doorways, other miracles were happening. The palace guard opened his eyes, his fever gone. "Water," he murmured, but his voice was strong. The widow's children woke with clear lungs, their coughs gone, hunger replacing pain. The old elder took a deep breath and sat up on his own for the first time in weeks. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he whispered, "Thank you, God." News travels faster than birds. Before the sun fully rose, the whole city knew. The water has returned. Sick people are standing. The girl's words worked. By midday, reports came from villages far away, wells filling, streams growing stronger, crops showing fresh green tips overnight. The heavy sickness that had sat on people's chests began to lift. Faces that had forgotten how to smile let their mouths curve again. In the palace hall, King David sat on his throne, this time with joy on his face. Grace stood before him, still in the same simple clothes, her head bowed. "Lift your head, child," he said. She did. Their eyes met. In his, she saw gratitude. In hers, he saw no pride, only quiet relief. In front of all these witnesses, the king said, turning so that the gathered crowd and advisers could hear, "I declare that this girl, Grace, is the instrument God used to save our land. When my strongest men failed, when my wisest advisers had no answer, her humble voice carried our healing." He stood up from his throne, something nobody could remember him doing for anyone, and walked down to where she stood. He took her hand and raised it high. "From today," he proclaimed, "you will be known as the voice of the kingdom. You will live within these walls. You will sit in my council. When we discuss matters of justice, health, and peace, your voice will be heard. I will give you land, servants, and whatever you need, but more than that, you will have my protection. No one will touch you again and go free." The hall erupted in cheers. Some people wept openly. Some of the same advisers who had laughed at her earlier now bowed deeply. Priests who had dismissed her as nothing now stretched out their hands, wanting her blessing. Grace's heart pounded. For a moment, she saw herself years before, sitting on the floor of her father's house, her mother telling her, "Do not use this voice for pride." She squeezed her eyes shut and whispered inside, "God, please keep me small in my own eyes." Far away in Stone Market Town, Margaret and Sarah heard the news like a strike of lightning. A neighbor rushed into their compound, shouting, "Have you heard? The king has found a savior, a young girl named Grace. They say her voice healed the whole kingdom. She is now living in the palace." Margaret dropped the bowl in her hand. It cracked on the ground. "Which Grace?" she asked, though her body already knew. "Your own niece," the woman replied, eyes bright. "The one you took in. Ah, Margaret, you are blessed, and you did not even tell us. So where is she? Are you not going to the city? She is now bigger than a queen." The words cut like knives. From that day, people who once praised Margaret for helping an orphan began to look at her differently. They whispered, "Is it not that same aunt who used to shout at the girl in the market? Do you know she beat her? My cousin told me. If she treated her well, maybe she would be there now as a respected relative." Sarah stopped drinking her voice tonic. It had never worked. Each time she opened her mouth, her own words sounded thin to her ears. She remembered standing in the doorway as her mother poured boiling herbs down Grace's throat. Shame tasted bitter on her tongue. 2 weeks later, they went to the capital dressed in their best. They stood outside the palace gate, craning their necks, hoping to catch a glimpse of the girl they once called Baden. Inside, Grace stood on a balcony looking over the city. Beside her, King David discussed plans to send food and medicine to far villages. "You will go with them," he told her. "Let your voice touch not only our rich, but also our poor." As she looked down, she saw 2 familiar figures at the gate. Her breath caught. Memories rose of canes, boiling herbs, harsh words. Anger tried to rise with them, but another feeling came too, a deep, quiet pity. "They are my aunt and cousin," she said softly to the king. "They were not kind to me." "What do you want to do?" he asked. "Shall I send them away? Shall I punish them?" Grace watched Margaret and Sarah from far above. They looked smaller now, not powerful at all, just 2 frightened women in fine clothes shuffling their feet. "No," she said slowly, "do not punish them. They have already punished themselves. Let them go back. But," she thought, of the widows she had seen, of children going hungry. "Send food to Stone Market Town, not only for them, but for the whole town. Let everyone there know that mercy came from God, not from us." The king smiled. "Your heart is bigger than this palace. May your voice never run dry." Years passed. People told their children, "Once upon a time, our land almost died, but God used a young girl's voice to wake it up again." Mothers named their babies Grace, hoping a little of that courage would fall on them. Whenever disputes rose in the palace, King David would look at her and say, "What is your mind?" And many times her gentle words turned anger away. Grace never forgot the graves under the tree on the hill. She visited when she could, standing between them, speaking softly.
"Papa, Mama," she would say, "your daughter is well. Your teaching carried me. Your God carried me." As long as she lived, she kept her promise. She refused gold for prayers. She turned down those who wanted to use her name for politics. When she raised her voice, it was for the sick, the poor, the forgotten. When she sang, even the birds seemed to rest on branches and listen. Some nights, when the sky was full of stars, if you stood very still near the palace and listened with your heart, you could almost hear another voice behind hers, the gentle echo of the woman in white, and maybe even the soft laughter of John and Joy. And somewhere, deep beneath the land, the water remembered the day it heard a girl speak and decided to flow again. Thank you so much for watching. What did you learn from this story? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.